So getting a job is awesome, right? But then you get that first paycheck and, well, it can be a little confusing. Today we're going to cut right through all that noise and figure out the single most important number on your pay stub, your gross pay. Let's dive in.
So, you did it. You landed the job, you signed the offer letter. Huge congrats. But there's always that moment, right? That little bit of mystery before your first payday. How does that big annual salary or that hourly wage you agreed to actually become the number you see on your check? That's the puzzle we're going to piece together today.
Okay, so before we can even think about taxes or deductions or, the money you actually take home, we have to start at the very beginning. And for every single paycheck, that beginning is a number called gross pay.
It's actually pretty simple. Your gross pay is the grand total, the full amount of money you've earned for a set period of work. It's that top-line number before your employer starts pulling out money for things like taxes, health insurance, or retirement plans. Just think of it as your total earnings in their purest form.
Now here's the thing. Calculating your gross pay isn't always the same. It really depends on how you get paid. So we're going to look at the two most common ways, getting paid by the hour and earning a fixed annual salary.
All right, first up, let's talk about hourly employees. For these workers, it's pretty literal. Time is money. Every single hour they put on the clock adds directly to their paycheck.
To make this super clear, let's meet Luke. He makes $12 an hour, and, well, this past week was a really busy one for him. His timesheet is the perfect example for us to work through.
Now, for folks like Luke, things can get a little more interesting, especially when they put in extra time. And that brings us to a really important idea: overtime. And listen up, because this is a big deal. Overtime isn't just some nice little bonus your company decides to give you. Nope, it's actually federal law. The Fair Labor Standards Act says that for any hours you work over 40 in a single week, your employer has to pay you time and a half. That just means your regular hourly rate gets multiplied by 1.5, which of course changes our whole gross pay calculation.
Okay, so here's our little math problem for today. We know Luke makes $12 an hour, and we know he worked a total of 51 hours. He definitely blew past that 40-hour mark. So the question is, how do we figure out his total gross pay for the week?
All right, let's walk through this step by step. It's easier than it looks, I promise. First, we have to split up his hours. The first 40 hours get paid at his normal rate. So 40 times $12, that's $480. Easy enough. Now for the overtime part. That's the extra 11 hours. Those get paid at time and a half. So that's 11 hours times this $12 rate times that 1.5 multiplier, which gives us $198. The last step, we just add the two numbers together.
And boom! There you have it. His $480 in regular pay plus the $198 in overtime gives Luke a total gross pay for the week of $678. You can really see how putting in those extra hours can make a huge difference for an hourly worker's paycheck.
Okay, so that's the hourly world. Now let's totally switch gears and talk about salary employees. For them, the math is completely different. It's not about tracking hours anymore. It's all about chopping up a big fixed annual income. So for this, let's meet Ivy. Ivy just got a new job offer with an annual salary of $35,000. Her calculation is way more straightforward, but it all hinges on one key piece of information from her new employer.
And that one key thing we need to know is her pay period, which is really just a fancy way of asking, how often are you going to get paid? This directly determines how much gross pay is on each of her checks.
The formula here is super straightforward. You just take your annual salary and divide it by the number of pay periods in a year. That gives you your gross pay per check. So what that means is, the more often you get paid, the smaller each individual paycheck is going to be.
So let's look at how this plays out for Ivy's $35,000 salary. If she gets paid weekly, she'll see 52 smaller checks for about $673 each. If she's paid bi-weekly, that's every 2 weeks, she'll get 26 paychecks. Now, if it's semi-monthly, which is twice a month, she'll get 24 paychecks a year, so each one is a little bit bigger. And finally, if she's paid monthly, she'll get 12 much larger checks.
And this right here, this is the most crucial thing to remember if you're salaried. Even though the amount on each individual paycheck changes depending on how often she gets paid, the grand total at the end of the year is exactly the same. Whether it's 52 small checks or 12 big ones, Ivy's gross annual income is still $35,000.
So there you have it. You now know exactly how to figure out that big number at the very top of your pay stub. But that kind of begs the next big question, right? Gross pay is what you earn, but what about net pay? You know, the money that actually lands in your bank account. What happens in between? Well, that's a story for another explainer. Thanks for watching.